work and process that's going on. Very excited to have Sem here to show off all the engineering work that he's been doing around conviction voting, and he's got a proposal again for reserve ratio, which is going to be interesting to hear. And besides that, I don't think that we'll have to talk praise analysis today because that call is next, or maybe in 2 hours from now. They're going to go deep into the praise analysis stuff, so we can focus totally on Commons dashboard. And look, I'm over here too. I'll pass it to Lauren.
Oh, hey. Wait.
Go ahead.
Okay, great. Okay, awesome, cool. Hey, cool. My intentions for the call are just to sync up with everybody. I'm just excited to be here. I worked on some forums posts for the params, but I'm just here to listen. I'm slightly distracted. I'm making a tweet for Gameth right now, but other than that, I'm fully here, and I'll pass it to Vitor.
Okay, can you hear me?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, intentions are to see how things are going. Excited to see Sam's work and see how can I help with it and anything else. And I have no distractions. I'll pass to Mitch.
Hello, everyone. No distractions for now. Intentions for this call, I'd love to see what's happening on the back end with the dashboard spec. And I'd like to get some final idea validation on the disputable conviction voting spec that we hashed out on Sunday. And then I guess check in for the forum posts and see if there's anything that can be done or advice given or whatnot. And I'll give it to Nuggin.
Yeah, distractions none, and intentions just also sync up, see what's going on, see what I can do, and that's it. And I pass it to Sam.
Hello, everyone. I have, intentions. I guess that I would like to sync on with the work that this group is doing, because I have been modeling a little bit the voting curve and conviction voting, and I've seen that you have also been doing some research on that, but I didn't have enough time to check it out properly, so probably we can sync in this call. And distractions, I am in the Givet house. I had Paulo behind me playing the VR, but not anymore. Poor Paulo. He's now working again. Yeah. No, nothing. And I think that I pass it to Septi.
Thank you, Sam. Yeah, my intention is to sync up. I also was reading a bit about the transferability that Sam was helping me. I found like it's hard to find the research, and then I thought that maybe I could help on doing the LDRs instead of doing, because it's very hard to me like find the. I mean, I can just what I did was just asking Sam, but it's but yeah, ideally like I feel like I would be good, you know, like having all the information and then doing the LDRs. And I'll pass it to Juan.
Juanca, are you around?
Yeah, I was muted. My intention is to sync, to learn from this group, and to be helpful in any way I can. And I don't have any distractions. Besides, it's really cold here. I don't know if I'm the last one.
I think so. So maybe we should start with Mitch's disputable conviction voting spec, and we can try to be relatively quick, but I think it'll help inform Sem's engineering work. And maybe also, Mitch, if you could just briefly go over the other two as well. It'd be just as more of a informative thing. Oh, you're muted, Mitch.
How about that? That works a lot better, huh?
Yeah, now we can hear you.
So I'm gonna drop this hackmd in the params channel. And then you guys can look at it, or you can just look at my screen here. And you guys probably want the other ones too, huh?
I can put the other ones too for you. I have them right here.
Okay, good. So we'll just look at this one first, or do you want to start from token thaw?
No, it's your show.
Okay. All right. So this is the spec that we hopefully finalized on Sunday. And so this is just going to be what I'm presenting to Marco, and then Marco is going to do all of the graphic design magic to make it beautiful. So we have the text here. If you guys want, I can read it out. Otherwise, you can just read it. Feel free to make any suggestions or comments on the language. And then after that, we have the 3 user inputs that we've decided to let the users choose from. Obviously, in the advanced view, there's going to be the big beast of parameters that people can play with. But for this one, we have conviction growth, which is half-life, relative spending limit, max ratio, and minimum conviction, which is minimum threshold. And then so really just focusing on how do we want to frame these questions in a really simple manner where if we can ask them a very clear sentence, and then it's easy for them to know what their input should be. So for relative spending limit, we basically borrowed a graph from the Commons simulator, and we ask how much of the Commons pool's funds can be requested in a single proposal. And then just like in the Commons simulator, we've got a slider there, and it, goes from the low end 5 to 50, but, we can change that to whatever, honestly. Moving on to conviction growth. So again, we kind of took a little bit, some different elements in the original one in the Commons simulator, like you have a bunch of buttons there that is like 7 days, 14 days. I forget what the other one is, but we just went for a slider instead for choosing half-life. So we asked them how quickly should stake TEC tokens accrue conviction, and then they have a slider which will basically just change the value of half-life, and then the graph will adjust. Any questions? Go ahead.
What's the axes on the graph?
So on this one here, we've got percent of conviction, and then on the x-axis, we've got time, right? So amount of days. And so they can see, at 20 days, they'll have, 70% conviction, 30, they'll be at 80% conviction. And then depending on where they put the slider, the graph will adjust. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
I think it matches what Sam did too.
Okay, perfect. Even better.
Yeah, exactly. I have this one.
Okay, great. Now this is where it gets fun. This is where we cooked all this stuff up on Sunday, and this is where we really need some idea validation. So we really tried to boil down the question when talking about minimum conviction, and what does the user actually want to know? What do they actually care surrounding this? And so it's like they want to know how many tokens are needed to pass proposal. And it's like, how do we present that information? How do we make it intuitive? And this is kind of what we cooked up. I'm going to switch over to Figma and give you guys a better look at it. If I can find it. And so we have 2 axes here. Oh, no, sorry, that's the other one. My bad. Minimum conviction. And so we have 2 axes here. This is the percent of tokens voting on this proposal versus the tokens, the total amount of tokens that are currently in CV voting, so the effective supply. And then this is time passed, right? And so by adjusting the minimum conviction percent, we see how many tokens of the total supply would be needed to pass proposal in X amount of days. And so on the hover, they could see it would just be like a detailed view. It would say this would pass in 13 days, but it would require 21% of the effective supply to be voting on this proposal.
And the assumption is that this is a proposal asking for 1 penny or something, basically, right? Like it's asking for almost nothing.
Right.
So this is the minimum conviction, but it will probably be, if you're asking for a proposal, it'll be more than this.
Yeah. And so that was the other thing too. It's like, how do we want to frame what you just said there and just say it like very explicitly and clearly?
I would probably just say the more funds, this is the minimum conviction. The more funds you ask for, the higher conviction is required. A higher conviction will be required. The more funds you ask for.
Mm-hmm.
And then that's kind of described in the output graph as well.
Yeah. Okay. Does anyone have any? What's that? Go ahead.
I was just about to say the same thing. Give people a chance. Like, I don't think Sammer's optimists have seen that before.
Yeah, we just cooked this up, so.
I really like this idea. I wish I was YGG so I could do a chart right now, like he does, and have it into the simulation. I think that it will take me a little bit more time, not in this call. But I think that it's pretty much a. I think that it's going to work actually. I think that I don't see any. I think that it's pretty good. Also,
okay.
choosing which is the asking for a penny. It's very nice.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
The thing is that maybe we can also add some kind of in other models. We can also have this kind of graph for asking how much time it's going to cost, depending when you are creating a proposal and you are selecting how much money you are going to request. This is a very nice graph that we can have later.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's a really good point.
Okay.
Septimus?
And then, so then with the slider there being the input, really, instead of having like the text field there where they put in like a random %, instead it'll just be a slider.
Yeah. The slider will be the requested amount. Actually, it doesn't have to be a slider. It can be a number input. But
no, the slider is going to be the minimum conviction, minimum threshold.
Yes, but once we have selected the parameters, then when you are asking for funds in a proposal, we can switch it a little bit. So we already know which is the minimum conviction. And I actually still don't see.
But that's out of context for the dashboard.
Yeah, exactly. But I like the idea a lot, actually.
Cool. Okay, good. Any other questions, comments?
I just wanted to say, like, this red text is, for me at least, is clear enough. Like, you're saying like it's the minimum, but then like what Justin was saying, like specifying, like assuming the user is, but having it lower, not having this red text with a lot of information, and I think it's super cool how it is right now.
This is just like, so we have context when we're talking about it now. When Marco does all the graphic stuff, like we won't have that red text in there.
Cool.
Okay. I can show a little bit what I have.
There's just, okay.
Okay.
If you want to jump into it, there's one more graph.
Yeah, do the last one.
Okay, good. I'm just gonna.
Because
Oh.
Sem made this last one as well. So
Okay, good. So then this is the other one here that's gonna kind of just sum it all up. And so here we have the y-axis, which is the effective supply. And then the x-axis is the percent of common pool funds that are being requested. And so the minimum conviction, or maybe Griff, if I'm wrong about this, the minimum percent of tokens needed to pass, right, of the effective supply starts here, and then it follows the graph until eventually it goes to the asymptote at the relative spending limit, right? And then we'll have like radial buttons here that will assume that they want to pass it in 7 days, they want to pass it in 2 weeks, 1 month, 3 months, 6 months. And then we have on hover here what percent of funds they're asking and how much of the effective supply needs to be voting on this proposal. Does that make sense? Did I explain that well?
I think so. Does anyone have any questions? Sem's up. Do you have any comments? Because I think, well, I guess Wonka too. You were you there for the params call on Sunday, Wonka? I can't remember.
I was at the praise analysis call.
That's right. So yeah, if anyone has any comments on this graph, of course, this is a good moment.
Is there a reason why we have an axis that doesn't correspond to it? It's not, how is it called? I mean, 17 should be much on the right.
Don't look at the number.
Okay.
I already got roasted for where I put these little percents on the thing. Like they're just they're not accurate. I'll say that.
I was wondering, are you using a logarithmic x-axis or something like that?
Yeah, we've already been giving him a hard time.
Jesus, man.
Give him a break, Sam. Come on.
Just getting roasted, man. Come on.
I was thinking that it was a very intelligent choosing because that makes the initial part is not so useful, so you wanted to give more accuracy to the last part of the axis. I don't know.
No, it's true. It's not a bad move. Sometimes you slip and fall into genius.
There you go. How you feeling? Look, it's gone.
That's still there. 15% is halfway through the graph. That goes to 20%.
Whatever, guys. Jesus.
Yeah. So this would be the main graph that people see that combines all three parameters to each other. The first parameter that you're picking is the relative spending limit. The second parameter that you're picking is basically the shape of this curve, although it's shaped in a different way when you're picking it. And it's like the slope of the curve is what is determined by the second parameter. And then where it crosses the y-axis is determined by the third parameter that you choose. And then you get this graph.
Okay. I have this graph, but I don't have the times because I have it in relation with conviction.
And you have it for infinity.
I can show it. I can show now what we have. And see how we adapt it. Because also another way to think on that, there is a way that is more close to how the things are coded, and this is how the things are explained. So I don't know. I am also worried that if we go very away from how the things are coded, then it starts to be difficult to understand how the things are done. But I will share my screen and let's see.
Okay.
Are you finished?
There's just the table at the bottom here
Okay.
that just maybe needs a bit of validation.
So this table is like different scenarios of different amounts in the pool and different number of tokens voting, and then like if someone requests this much money, this is the experience of making a request in that scenario.
So in this scenario, we've got various amounts of money in the common pool and various levels in the effective supply, and then how much they're asked, what the maximum they can ask, the amount they're actually asking for, and then the amount of tokens they need to pass it in X amount of time. And so, here in the graphs, we're giving them a lot of percents, and then down in the tables, we can give them something more concrete to help them understand it. My only thing is, like, if you think that there's information that's missing, like if we should add another row with information that we think they should see, or
it's not minimum tokens. It would just be, well, I guess it is minimum tokens. Never mind. You're right. It's minimum tokens.
Yeah.
One thing maybe in the row requested amount, specify that it's an example. So example requested amount or something like that. Just because we're talking about general things, and then this is a specific example. So kind of, show that.
What do you mean? Like just mention that it's an example?
Yes.
Do you think it's not clear by the column headers?
I don't know, because we're talking
like
something like that, or just
Okay.
Or move it up to somewhere where it's more prominent, because it's like middle in the other stuff, and maybe it can get kind of lost. I don't know. It was just my first impression. I don't know if the rest thinks it's okay, then that's fine also.
Yeah, that's fine. Okay. Any other comments on that before we? Okay, cool. I think you're good to go then, Sam.
Okay. I share my screen then.
Okay.
Here it is. Okay, so the most related with that is I have been working on that for gardens, because we are also doing some kind of onboarding, and I wanted to simplify it the most. So we are also selecting 3 parameters: half-life, max ratio, and mean threshold. The only thing that it needs to change is the naming of those parameters. Internally they are called this way, but it can be interesting to call them in another way. And we have these 2 graphs. So this is exactly the first graph that you were talking about, how conviction is accruing over time. And then we define the threshold as amount of conviction. But in the document that you have shared, this is not amount of conviction. This is it is percentage of tokens over time, right? So it changes a little bit. We will not have this line here, and this will be a little bit different. So this depends on also on alpha. because you can select what will it look like after 2 days, after 1 week, after blah blah. Right now it's completely static and only depends on max ratio and mean threshold. But if we want to know if we want to give it an amount of time, then it will be something different. So I have to give it a thought, a more deep thought, and I still don't know if it's going to be interesting to describe it in this way with the times, because what does it mean 3% of threshold? If what is 3% exactly, right? It's more interesting to know how much tokens you need to stake during how much time. So yeah, basically this is what we have, and maybe it's still interesting to change also for gardens. And so it will be a change in this graph here. I will suggest that because we have three parameters, we have 3 graphs, 1 for each, and then we have here the amount requested, that it's more like something that you can play with. And I don't know, in that case probably it will not be needed anymore, right? Because in the hackmd you were not using the requested amount at any point.
It won't be needed in the final.
In the final one?
Well, it might. I mean, it might be. We haven't gotten to the very end, right? So it won't be needed in at least in the first section. But I wouldn't remove your code unless it gets in the way, because we haven't done the final page, or maybe there'll be more calculators and more ways to experience the whole system, so that it could come in handy. I wouldn't say this is the final spec. This is just for what was shown was the section where they pick 3 of the parameters for conviction voting, and we give them the deep dive into conviction voting, but there's going to be these 4 sections, and then there's going to be a final page. So, but we haven't even looked at the final page yet and how we want to tie it all together. So maybe there'll be this, what if how much XDAI would it take to, pass a proposal that's asking for this amount, right? Oh, you have to go put in the bonding curve. It creates this much commons tribute. Who knows? We're not sure what game we're gonna play on that last page.
Okay. By the way, the 3 parameters that we are selecting are these 3 ones, and it's interesting. I think that it's an improvement to make it in relation to something else, not the amount requested. So I will do some more user testing. Maybe we can have the dashboard only in a Python like this, and then see how people react to it. Is that already in your plans, or you wanted to use Figma first?
Yeah, I mean, we can do both. I mean, you already have the dashboard going, but yeah, the plan is to, because this doesn't, for user testing and user validation, this doesn't have any paragraphs of context, right? It doesn't have it's not a fun UI. A lot of, for the developers, they come to this and they're like, yeah, cool, But if I throw this, into the general chat and say, hey guys, validate our design, and they'll be like, this doesn't make any sense. How do I even run this locally? I don't know what you're talking about.
Exactly.
But so for the Figma, we'll just have a Figma prototype where they can touch things and play, and then be like, okay, yeah, no, I understand this. And it's like we're here to identify impact hour slope. Which one of these parameters is our impact hour slope this time?
I mean, it can be in a collab, in a Google Colab, and it's going to be much easier. You don't have to have all these weird things. You can go directly to the panels. But yeah, I get the point.
Yeah, and we'll there's a lot of validation that can happen all at once on Figma. Like, where do we put it on the screens? What order do things come in, present to people?
For me, the interesting part is seeing the graphs change while we change the sliders. And this probably is not going to happen with Figma. But the other thing that I wanted to say is that there is a fourth parameter that it's hidden. Is it going to be in advanced mode? Right.
Yeah.
It's going to be, right? Okay.
Yeah.
For this fourth parameter, it gives us a percentage in which the line is going to be flat, and it's used. This line in this last chart is going to be flat, and it is used to determine which is going to be the maximum conviction of one proposal the maximum conviction a proposal can grab in relation of how much tokens there are.
And I'll just say, to cut scope, we're probably not going to visualize min effective supply. We're just going to rely on the power of defaults.
Okay, but it's interesting just to say that it is used in cases in which you want to know what happens when people is abstaining or voting on other proposals. It just makes the maximum amount of conviction less than the one that you can grab when everybody is voting in the same proposal. This is basically that. It's making this line higher. So if we move that, actually I have to run it in order to have it, but it makes this line more long, and that's all actually. This is more like if you want to get deep enough into how conviction voting is implemented, this is for you. And if you are just wanting to have a clear but abstract sense of how conviction voting is going to work, then probably it's much better to have the graphs that we have to adapt, which is I can do in the same place.
Nice. Maybe before you show off because I'm also excited to have the reserve ratio open price debate, but maybe before we dive into that, Mitch, can you quickly present the token thaw and then the ABC designs?
Yeah, sure. Okay, let's have a look here. So this one's pretty straightforward. The three things that we talk about in this one is token thaw, token freeze, and price floor. And so we have the text here that we've already gone over a couple times, and I'm pretty solid about this. And so basically we just want to connect that the token freeze and the token thaw have a direct impact on the price floor. And then how do we frame those and make those connections, in kind of like an economic sense, but also from like giving the commons time to establish itself sort of sense. And so the first question that we ask them is, at what price should we set the TEC token at launch of the commons? And then we just give them a basic input where they put in the opening price in XDAI, I believe, for the TEC token. After that, we ask them how long should the TEC tokens be frozen to maintain a price floor at, what happened here? At number by XDAI. So that would be the opening price, right? So if we say we want to hold it at 2 XDAI, 1 TEC token per 2 XDAI, whatever, then we ask them for the input of the token freeze. And then how long should it take for 100% of the hatcher's TEC to be released? And then that'll be just a basic input for the token thaw. And then after that, we have an output here of a table just to visualize it. So at 5 weeks, what percent of tokens are released? What's the price floor of the token? And then the same thing here shows up in the graph, where we've got the y-axis is the price floor, and the x-axis is the amount of time that's elapsed. That's pretty much it.
Yeah.
If there's any questions.
Yeah, I have a quick question. I also was reading through the documentation. I was just curious. I think it's a fairly solid plan, but I thought, what about why is time the indicator for the thaw and not the market movements, or some combination thereof, right? Because you might want to, if the price is holding, you might want to have sort of a metric looking at both time and price if the floor is holding, to accelerate the thaw, or vice versa. So, I was just thinking about how you might want to have it a little more dynamic and not just fixed solely on time. That was just my one thought.
This is a technical issue. It's just really difficult. The vesting contracts that are audited and available all are focused on time, but I completely agree. We had in the original common stack design, it's exactly that way. Where, we were also using a few other KPIs, specifically how much money has been spent out of the common pool was kind of the idea. So it's like, is the economy, you can't release all of your tokens until you've spent this much money out of the common pool, which might be maybe 4 times the amount that the common pool starts with, right? So then your tokens aren't released until the economy is really going. And funding good projects was one of our original vesting requirement KPIs, but that will have to be for the next iteration.
Yeah, no, I get it. That's really cool. I mean, I was even thinking just pool size, because it depends on your other metrics. If you're setting the tributes, depending what you're setting, the funds are coming into the pool as well. So as the pool grows or not, that would basically make the reserve more secure. So that's a bit what I was thinking also on the other side. But I like that metric. That's really cool. Yeah.
Yeah. Damn.
Something to be a token engineering contribution to the broader community. So those two dynamics could be, you're right, like a fully audited code. Because I think there's a value to like maintaining the pool as the funds are coming in. So if it's a big rush, the pool is fairly flush, and if your exit tribute can be modeled in a way that it wouldn't dramatically, or it would even increase maybe if there was an exodus, or at least would be maintained, you might feel secure enough to pass in the release or not. Yeah. Anyway.
Yeah. But for now, we'll just have to do time, which is what everyone expects anyway. So, but yeah. Any other comments on on the token thaw?
On the first question, we were asking about what's the price we want for the TC at launch. I think that's not and it's something that we were also discussing yesterday on Common Swarm. It's not. I mean, if you're asking for price, why not 10 million for token? And like the scope is not on the right place, because for asking you can ask whatever, but I feel it's not. I don't know if.
Well, the reason that it comes up here is because the output of the vesting requirements ends up being giving a price floor, and so you might want, if you have a higher opening price compared to the hatch price, you probably want a longer vesting period, because like people made a lot of money on paper, but it's not in the bonding curve. So you'd probably want to have a longer freeze and a slower thaw. But if you're asking for, maybe you just say the opening price is the same as the hatch price. Well, then you can probably have a smaller freeze and a smaller and a shorter thaw, because there's more in the bonding curve. And so it's just relevant in the experience of the vesting contracts to have that set in it before. And it's also, the cool thing about open price is this is like, for the people, remember the people who are voting on this and the people who will be parameterizing this will have already paid a hatch price. And so it's like a very, it's like a very it's a very clear number. They know what the impact is, right? Hey, what open price do you want to use? Well, we paid 1 wrapped XDAI for a token. And so let's make it 1.25, right? And take that amount of profit. And then, and so it's like this really easy first question that really is probably one of the main things that they will want to design around, is their individual profits.
So when we decide the open price, I don't know if I'm understanding it correctly, but when you decide the opening price, it also tells you what's the token freeze and the token thaw. Like you only choose like the opening price, or?
No, you choose the opening price and then the number of days that you want to have the freeze and the number of days that you want to have, or weeks that you want to have the thaw.
But what if I put an opening price 10 million and then on the token freeze 1 day? What would happen?
Well, then no one would vote for your parameters.
No one would vote for it.
What if yeah, but if that passes, I'm not understanding. Like, what are the consequences of that?
There wouldn't be very much money in the bonding curve, so you'd have a run on the curve, likely.
Okay, yeah, so it's like failure. Like one people or two would take the profits, and then the bonding curve would be dead. That's the consequences.
Probably. I mean, that would be the game theory issue that you have to overcome with culture, right? It's like kind of a game of chicken. It's like, okay, no one's gonna dump, right? No one's gonna dump, right? And then eventually someone dumps, and then everyone dumps.
Yeah, I see. Thank you.
Wouldn't it also depend on the steepness of the bonding curve? So even if it starts at 1 million, like if you get one in, but it depends on how steep it drops, because that's what the
opening price, because we already have this is all done post hatch, so we know how much money we've raised, we know how many tokens exist, and then we in the next parameter for the bonding curve, we'll pick how much money will go to the bonding curve, and with that, then we'll have a ratio. Then we'll know how the bonding curve is shaped. But the higher the opening price, the more steep the curve will be.
Right.
Yeah,
Only if it depends on the percentage you're letting loose out from the hatch, right? Because otherwise, if they're all locked in, then you don't have anything to sell to, basically.
Yeah, the more money that you put in the curve, the less steep it will be. But you're still gonna have, the higher the price, the more steep it'll be.
Right. Right. As it opens. Yeah. Right. I was actually wondering why, if you guys thought about like a gnosis auction or something like that, with your, from the even setting the price. Okay, that's one question, and then once you, but it's actually that the auction is more like not really setting the price. It's sort of allowing the market mechanism.
Since we only have 13 minutes, I want to stay on topic. I'm sorry, decentralized.
Yeah, sorry, I was just curious.
It's okay. Design has been set. We just have to finish. But I mean, these are good. These are good topics for the next comments.
Do you want to plow through this or switch to something else?
Yeah, plow through.
Okay. So we're going right into the augmented bonding curve. And so we've got the short description here. Okay. And then we ask them what percentage of the hatch funds should go immediately to funding TEC projects. So this is the Commons tribute. And then we just stole something from the Commons simulator, very similar. And then talking about entry tribute, exit tribute, what percentage of every buy should go to the funding, the TEC, entry tribute. Similar thing from the sell orders for the exit tribute. And then we've got this tool that we designed here that is going to be for testing out the augmented bonding curve. So they put in their 3 inputs: Commons tribute, entry tribute, exit tribute. We already have the open price from the module before because this is going to be happening in a linear order. And so in order to use this, they're going to choose a reserve balance. So we're going to give them, 5 or 6 preset options, or they can choose a reserve balance. And then basically they're going to have a graph here that's going to be token price on the y-axis, and then the reserve balance on the x-axis. They're going to put in an amount, of TEC that they're buying or selling, and then they can basically plot the different steps on the curve. And then we're going to give them a little bit of information here. So they're going to say the price that they went in at, the buy amount or the sell amount, and then the new price after the order has been executed. And then in order to properly set up kind of the story that we want to tell, we're going to have 3 initial steps. It's going to be a small buy, a larger buy, and then a sell. And then we'll have another scenario, which is going to be a buy, a larger sell, and then a sell. And then from there, we're going to allow the users to add 3 more points using this tool above, so that they can understand what's happening on the curve, but then they can also experiment with it themselves. Does that make sense to everyone?
Just to clarify, these are the outputs, and it's like how they would experience the curve. So it's not like when they're choosing those reserve ratios and stuff. Those are just so that they can zoom in on the shape of the curve in a given spot. It's not like a parameter or anything. The only 3 parameters on this page are exit tribute, entry tribute, and how much goes, and the Commons tribute.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so this tool is really just for visualizing the curve. It doesn't really set any inputs. Experiencing the curve, I think that's what we said.
Yeah.
Okay, so
Yeah, dive in, Sam.
Yeah.
yeah, the thing is that I think that it's very complicated for people who is trying. I guess that it's interesting because we are going to have these param calls, and it's going to be cool to test these things. But at the same time, I was thinking that this was for once the curve is already deployed, and we could have this kind of calculator. All the time I thought that it was after having selected the parameters. But yeah, probably when I see a better Figma with how it is more clear which are the order of the points. In my personal opinion, it's too complex, I would say, because it is a lot of interactions with the curve. But
Do you have any ideas to clean it up?
just do one step.
One step, like here's a buy. This is what you get.
Yeah, this is a buy, or this is a sell. Yeah. maybe you set up the current point that you want to set up, and then what happens when you buy, what happens when you sell, and you probably obtain a very similar thing to that.
Do you think we should let them choose a reserve balance or just pick one?
Actually, the reserve balance, it's going to always be related with the supply, right? It should be the same, right?
It is basically this.
Basically.
Supply and
I know that Zargum has something against the supply price chart. He hates it.
Yeah. I see that.
He hates it. He would slap me. I fear his wrath if we go supply versus price.
So instead, we would just have one step that happens on a curve, and then we would just show them what a buy step or a sell step would look like, and that's it.
Maybe you can select the first point and the other point. Just select 2 points, which is the current state and which is the state that you want to go, and that makes things much more clear and much more easy to implement.
Okay.
I don't know. I mean,
yeah. The other.
I don't want to cut the fun.
I mean, it's cool. I think I hear what you're saying, because it was very complicated to come up with this as an idea, and then it's like Marco made a good point. It's like, do we want users to get stuck playing with this, or just give them what they need to know and then move on? But Griff also made a good point of like adding several steps, like at least 3, to show what happens, like a user making profit or a user losing money, what that situation would look like. And so you'd need several steps to be able to show that.
Yeah, that's kind of like, okay, so what, because it's really about tuning the exit tribute and entry tribute, right? So you're shaping the curve, but then you're also tuning the entry tribute and exit tribute. So to give people the experience of the entry tribute and exit tribute, the general concept was, well, if I buy $100 and this person buys $1,000 and then I sell, do I even make a profit? Like maybe I lose money because of the exit tributes.
Yeah.
So would the idea to be to have like 2 or 3 storylines that we could utilize that kind of capture the diversity of the experience?
It would be 2. So one with, like I was saying, with the buy, larger buy, and then a sell. So, person 1 buys, person 2 makes a big buy, and then person 1 sells. And so person 1 made profit, and then just showing like what that looks like with the tribute settings. The second one, person 1 buys, person 2 makes a huge sell, and then person 1 sells, and then showing how that person lost money and how much went to the commons pool.
I would call that one the Hotel California. You can check in, but you can't check out.
Yeah, exactly.
I also need some more time in order to understand how the supply versus collateral graph works. In the case of the
just so you know, this is actually going to be reserve versus price. It's just a bad. It's supposed to be reserve versus price. It's just a copy paste of a different chart.
Okay, that's perfect, because in that case, the exit and entry tribute can also be represented in another way. It's the same curve, but because you are obtaining a different price when you are selling or you are buying, it's like a curve that diverges from the price that should be. So you can also visualize very clearly in the graph how the tributes affect the curve of the price. It's more like if you are in this point, when you try to sell, it's like this, and when you try to buy, it's like this. So if the tributes are very high, the curve they are two curves that they are two different curves that at the point of the current state they converge, but you can see that it looks like they are two curves actually, because they are. So this is not yet, I don't have it yet, but this is the way that I was imagining it. So this also can give the people a sense of what they are doing when they are setting up exit and entry tributes, because they are actually changing the price of the things, I think.
Okay, so we're out of time. You know, Sem made an awesome, did a lot of work on the bonding curve stuff. I'm really sorry that you don't get to share it on this call, Sem. We went over on time, but it's super cool, and we'll have to have the reserve ratio versus open price debate some other time. I do want to just give a nod to I need to take this quick moment just to share screen and say the great work that's been happening on the forum posts. Looks like Lauren has a few forum posts that are ready for review if people want to check them out. I moved them down to the advanced parameters section because that's where they're going to be. Also, I'm kind of working on this default params to figure out some of these gardens default params that really will just confuse people. And then maybe Nate, do you have anything to talk about on these forum posts?
Not yet. Just have more perspectives and make sure that everybody has kind of a nuanced understanding. And if you see anything that could be explained better, please make a note of it, comment, and review.
And if you are taking on a post, for instance, transferability, I didn't know you were working on it, Zep, and I think Nuggin was starting to work on it too.
Yeah,
So,
that's what I wanted to say.
Go ahead and link.
But only if you mind that I kind of also work on that, or do you prefer to finish it first and I just do the other stuff? Septimus.
No, it's totally fine. I was just pasting, like, basically it's a forum post that Sam did, and I was just grabbing the information there. And of course, like, this is like, we work on this together, and we make sure like this is the best we can do. And yeah, feel free to edit whatever and do. Yeah, I mean, I'm just learning, so yeah, feel free to edit whatever.
Okay, great.
Cool. So check this doc. This is our doc for managing the forum post work. Put links in so you can share your progress, and that way we don't duplicate work. It's hard in these decentralized communities not to duplicate work. So let's try to use this awesome outline that Nate put together so that we can coordinate around it. And was there any? Oh, and there's this power of defaults post that I'm still working on, but it's there's some things blocking me from finishing it, specifically around disputable voting. But I guess the latest update is it seems like we came to a consensus that we'll probably just have one disputable voting app, and we'll skip all the permission stuff. And so we should be able. I know. I love
Trello board.
I know, man, and really. What I'm really disappointed at is that we're going to skip out on this opportunity to really educate our community about how these DAOs are governed by the God mode, which is disputable voting. We're basically cutting that scope, and it deeply saddens me that people will not understand how this DAO permissions will work. But we have to cut scope. So, in the interest of time and simplicity, there's probably just one disputable voting app, and we'll push this all out this week.
Can you confirm that whenever it's like 100%, and then I can start reworking the spec?
Sam, it's basically 100%, right?
Yeah, I would say that.
Just give it to me, man. I can take it.
Let's scope the scope list. We can, after launching this, do more interesting things in regards of the permissions. we will do them. We will do them, but not during the next 2 months or the time that we need to do the command upgrade. It's just not possible.
This is what Sem did to bait me into this horrible situation. We'll just have to add another disputable voting app later, and do the permissions stuff and educate our community post Commons upgrade for that and a few other things that we would like to be more complicated. But it is what it is.
So then, I know we're over time, but then just for that spec note, that we're going to go through everything: quiet ending, quiet extension. We're going to give them the full parameters there because we're cutting the scope of permissions.
Yeah, I don't think we need to cut any of the main parameters and move them into for disputable voting. We're taking the dispute and disputable conviction voting. The disputes will be in the select parameters, which are really the dispute parameters. Those will be in the advanced tab.
Yeah. Okay.
So yeah. Okay. Well, thank you guys.